Hi everybody. It's been a while since I've painted. I think the winter doldrums have hit me and it's been really hard to get started again. So I decided to paint one more little winter project. It's going to be a little snowman design. And here's the drawing I've made up for it. And I'm going to do it on an 8x10 canvas. And I'll also give you a pattern for probably a 16x20 in the PDF file. So I'm going to paint it with DecoArt Americana Premium Acrylics. And I'm using, to start out, we're going to do a base coat, just a ground on the canvas to get some color on it. We're going to use cobalt blue hue and titanium white. And I've put some of these, a puddle of these out on my palette. And we're just going to kind of do a variegated background, mixing the two of them together. Now one thing I did want to, I've been painting with these premium acrylics for a little while, since DecoArt's come out with them. And they're nice, they come in a tube, and they dry to a kind of a semi-gloss finish. So you can get by, if you don't want a varnish, you can do that. But what I found, they have a flip top on these, but I find when I use the flip top, you get a lot of gooey paint that pops out and it's really messy. So I don't even use that. I just always unscrew the lid, put some out of my palette and screw it back again. I find it much neater that way and I'm not wasting so much paint. Because I like to store these sitting up so that the paint stays down to the bottom where it's going to come out of the hole in the tube. And it just seems like when you pull that flip top, it just pulls a bunch of paint out and it gets all over everything. So that was one thing I've learned as I've been using these. So to start out, we just want to use some type of large brush, since we're going to do... Sorry, somebody rang the doorbell and my dogs went crazy, so I had to stop for a minute and go answer the doorbell. And they had the wrong address anyway, so it's an unnecessary distraction. So anyway, I'm using a like 3/4 inch flat brush, and this is just an 8x10 canvas. It comes prepared with a gesso on the surface, but I want to do just a base color over it to fill in the grain of the canvas before we start painting our snowman. So I'm going to do just a little spritz of water over it. Make our paint move a little bit better. And then I'm just going to pick up and start filling in with some of this blue. Pick up some white. And just crisscross and blend that in. We just want this soft, variegated background that will look like a snowy day. And I'm going to keep this a little deeper blue here in the middle where my snowman's going to go, so that when we paint the white snowman in, he'll sort of pop against that background. It'll add a little bit of that shading that we'll need to make him stand out. So add a little bit more of the blue, and you can soften that down as you come out to the edges. And as you're painting, you can go ahead and paint around the edges of your canvas to get them filled in, so that if you don't want to frame your design, you can just hang it as it is with a gallery wrapped canvas. Now this canvas that I have is an older one. I have such a stash of stuff that I've been trying to downsize and use up some of my supplies. So this is an old style canvas that has the staples on the edge, but I've done these and I just paint the edges in a solid color. So I'm going to add a little bit more misting to the sides of this that's starting to dry. So this paint will stay workable for a little bit, so you don't have to worry about it too much. And you just want this background kind of wispy, like snow blowing, so you can have a little bit more white here and there, and a little darker blue. So I'm working this, I think I'll make it a little darker blue and it'll lighten as it goes to the right side. But we do want to keep the center area a little bit darker. I'm just looking to make sure I'm getting all those that little texture in the canvas filled in, so you don't have that white canvas shining through your paint. You don't want to get too much water on this, because if that paint thins down, it's not as opaque. It won't cover your canvas quite as much, so don't overdo it with the water. You can tell if the paint starts slipping off the canvas too much that you've got too much water on it. That grain will show through too much. Add some more in here to darken it a little. And you can see I'm just flipping this brush back and forth, kind of a loose X stroke. Some little wisps of white through here. And that will give us a good base to work from. Let's go a little bit more in here. A little bit more blue. A little bit more blue down here. Okay, so I'm going to stop here and let this dry, and I'm going to paint my sides, and then we'll come back. Once it's dried, you can trace your design down, and you'll want to probably use a white or gray graphite, whichever you think shows up, just enough that you can see the design on there to start filling it in. And then we'll start working on our snowman. You just want to trace in the basic outlines. You don't want to do a lot of detail, because we'll be painting over that as we're basing the snowman in. So I'll see you back here in a little bit. Okay, we're back. My canvas is dried. I've traced my design down. I didn't do the words, just the outlines of the snowman and the little cat and the mailbox. And now I think I'm going to go ahead and put some snowflakes in the background before we get any further. So I've got this little stencil here. You can use any snowflake back stencil. This one is a Laurie Speltz one called, it's BCS 239. I think it's called Swirls and Snowflakes, or Snowflakes and Swirls, something like that. But it's got a lot of little different snowflakes on it. I'm not going to use the swirl designs because I'd rather have some more brushed looking, dry brush looking swirls when we finish, but I'm going to put some of these snowflakes here in the background, and you can just pick and choose which ones you want to do. You can use any kind of brush. I like to use these little like dome dry brushes. This one is a Traditions one, but you can get these in most of the brush brands. And I'm just going to pick up a little bit of that white paint on my brush and just dry brush that into that stencil design. And you can pick and choose which one of the snowflakes you want to use. You don't have to use all of them. And you can move the stencil around to vary the pattern. You can see here we've got a bunch of snowflakes on, so I'm just going to keep filling these in. I let some brown paint dry on that brush and it's starting to work into my paint a little bit, so wipe that off. I'm not really very good always about cleaning my brushes. So I'm not doing anything here in the center where my snowman is. So now I look at this and I think I'd like some of these little feathery ones more over in here, so I'm going to add a couple more of those. Turn the stencil, and so you can do that and fill in wherever you want a different type of snowflake. I'll do one here and let it overlap a little bit. You can brush some more solid and let some be a little softer. Just don't go over them quite so much and they'll be a little more feathery. Put one down in here. I'll put another little one here. So whenever you feel like you have enough and it's balanced out, you can stop. So I'm going to go right there. We can always put more in later if we want to. I don't like to wet these dry brushes, put them in water. So usually the way I clean them is to clean them with hand sanitizer. I always keep a bottle of that here on my painting table, and that will dissolve dried paint out of your brushes. And since it's an alcohol-based product, that'll evaporate pretty quickly. So you can just, I do it in my hand, but you can also keep like a little plastic lid or plastic cup to put this in, so you're not irritating your skin. So you might need to do that 2 or 3 times till the brush wipes clean on a paper towel when you pinch it out. And I'm not jabbing the brush, I'm just squeezing and pulling just to pinch the excess out of there. So we'll just set that aside for now. So I think now we want to paint in our snowman. And I want to put a slightly darker color in on him to be our shadow color. So I'm going to use the blue that we started with, which was the cobalt blue hue. And I'm going to put out a little bit of carbon black just to gray that color down a little. And I'm just using this is a 3/8 inch angle brush. Just dampen it a little bit. And then just pick up the blue, and I'm just picking up a little bit of that black in it. And that'll just tone it down just a little. I'm going to come in here and just paint in that snowman. You can see that color's a little grayer than the blue background. And I'm not worried about getting just an even color, so if my brush mix varies, that's okay. It'll just add some interest to your design. So here I'm getting a little blacker, and some spots I may be a little more blue. I'm covering the whole snowman, but I'm trying to keep more of the darker color to the outside because the center is going to be our highlight point. So that doesn't need to be as dark. So when I load the brush, I'm always starting along the outer edge so that the heaviest paint is laid down along that edge. And then as I work towards the center, there's not nearly as much paint on my brush, and it's just thinned out. And do the same thing with the face. I'm just picking a little bit of black up here on the edge of the pile. Lay that paint out on the edge of your face. I'm coming around the bottom edge. And I can work here under the hat. If you get too much paint, just pinch it out on a paper towel. And then we're just going to soften that in here at the center. I'm going to clean this brush. I haven't really worked out my color plan yet. I think we'll do little cardinals, so we have some pops of red here and the little birds. And we're going to put some red stripes in the hat band and the scarf. And I think we'll do the top of the hat in think we'll just start out just doing it in a white color. So I'm gonna just fill this in here, the center. And I want to soften that out into the blue as we get to the edges, so that will just start our shading. So I'm just scrubbing that color out a little bit. Paint's picking up a little bit right here, so I'm just going to dab that back in. We'll do these little ear flaps in the white also. I'm just sort of side loading, you know, putting some paint on the tip of my brush, but I don't have any. It's just damp, not really any water like a true side load. It's more of a kind of a dry brush side load. And then I'm going to scrub that little edge to soften it back up into the shadow. We're just using that blue background color as our shadow. We'll darken it a little later. I think we'll do a base of gray on him. So I've got a warm gray here. Put out a little bit of that. We're not going to need much. I'm just going to fill him in. And I'm not worried about getting him a real perfect even coat. I'm just want to give him an overall grayish color, so some of that blue can peek through. So I'm going to leave a lot of the blue right here in his underbelly, so just put a little bit of gray over that. Just working his tail on the chisel edge of my brush. If you prefer, you can use a liner brush. Let me zoom in a little closer so you can see him. Move over here a little way so we stay more on camera, a little closer. I think we'll go ahead and put some white on that scarf also. I'm gonna keep it lighter here towards the center. So that's where I'm putting my paint down first. I'll wipe my brush out and just soften that out to the sides. So again, we can use the blue background as the start of our shading. This is hard on your brushes because I'm pretty much scrubbing with the tip of that brush to soften that white out. You probably hear my canvas clinking on my surface here. I've got a big sheet of glass here under that I use as my surface, and I can use it as a painting palette also. And the glass is really nice because you can just take a razor knife. Where did I put it? Oh, I have this old one. It takes a single edge razor and it's retractable, and you can just take it and if you've got paint on your surface, just scrape this off and brush it away and you're good to go again. And be sure to get glass that's tempered and make sure your edges are sanded down a little bit so you don't worry about cutting yourself. You can, this one I had was a piece of glass I had on a small tabletop, but I've ordered some off of Amazon. I bought one for my kitchen to go under my Keurig coffee maker, and I got it on Amazon, and it's actually an artist palette. I think it's maybe 12 by 16 in size, and it was real nice. I have a coffee bar that's got a distressed wood countertop on it, and I didn't want water from the coffee maker getting onto it, so I bought this. It's just the perfect size to sit my coffee maker on and have room to sit a cup of coffee next to it. But, you know, this is a real nice painting surface when you're working because you can easily clean it. So anyway, we've got a little bit of our scarf highlighted in here. Let's go ahead and work a little bit on these tails of the scarf. Again, I'm just kind of side loading my brush with some white on the tip, but I don't have little or no water in the brush. It's just a little damp from cleaning it, and then I'm laying that paint down where I want the strongest color. And then I can wipe it off and just soften and scrub that back where I want my shadow to be. using the background color for the shadow. We'll do the same thing for the other tail. Pinch that excess paint out of it and just soften it back in here. And then you can see we already have a lot of our highlighting going on here, highlighting and shading. Soften that out just a little bit more. I'm going to find a smaller brush here. Not very organized today. I really need to clean my painting studio. Okay, I'm going to use this little smaller, I think it's a 1/4 inch angle brush. Again, I like it dampened first, but I don't want much water in it. I'm going to pick up a little bit of white again and paint in our little cat ears on this hat. Some paint up at the tips where we want the strongest highlight to be. And then pinch that out and soften it back down. And then let's go ahead and paint in, just base in our little red birds before we get any further. And I guess we'll base in our little house here, our little bird house. So I've already got the black out. I'm going to make the birdhouse roof black. So I'm just using a little round brush. This is a number 2 round. I'm just going to line that in along the edges and fill it in. So I'm just outlining the edges. And I'll go in and fill in the center. And for the birds, I'm going to use this, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, it's Pyrrole or Pyrrole red, it's Pyrrole. It's just a nice kind of watermelon red. Again, I just screw off the top, I don't use the flip top. Put a little bit of that on the palette. I'm going to use the round brush to fill in the birds, they're pretty small. Again, just outline them. And fill in the center. haven't decided what color we're going to do the birdhouse yet. I'm going to wait and get some colors on our hat because I'm going to do some stripes, and then we'll decide what we need to paint that birdhouse to balance things out. Now, as I'm sitting here looking, I realized we haven't done anything with the hat band, so we're going to paint it in the same as we did the scarf. So I'm just picking up some white. We're going to start here in the center. Work that out in both directions. Because I'm right-handed, when I work this left side I have to turn the canvas to I'm going to pinch the excess white out, and then we're going to scrub that out towards the edge to let that background blue start our shading. I'll come over on the other side and do the same thing. It's starting to dry a little bit, so I'll pick up some more white, soften in the middle here. Again, pinch the excess out and just dry brush that out to the sides. I think we can use our gray to start basing in the little arms. These little twigs. Again, I'm using the round brush and that color is going to balance out our cat. I like to repeat colors, so that's why, I try to use the same colors in different elements. I think they usually tell you to try to repeat it in a color in 3 places to balance your painting. So we've got a snowflake running here at the center of our arm, so I'm just going to skip around it. And again, feel free to turn the canvas whatever direction is most comfortable for you to line. I always feel better pulling towards myself, so that's why I'm turning this canvas upside down. We're going to have to go back and probably put another coat on those birds once they dry. Reds are a little transparent, so we're seeing some of that blue coming through.